I am very delighted this afternoon to be here with David Bruce Leonard, a very respected colleague and friend that has a tremendous amount to offer. And I would like, first of all, for him to tell us a little bit about his most recent book.
Hi, Ilana. Thank you.
Hi.
The book is called How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls, A Man's Guide to Sacred Sex. And there's two parts to the book, actually. The first part is male psychology as relates to women and also men relating to themselves. And the second part is about sacred sexuality.
Thank you. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the scholarly aspect,
Thank you.
the humor, the sensitivity, and the depth that was brought forth in terms of male and female interrelationships on lots of levels, intimacy through communication, through understanding, and really understanding ourselves better as sexual beings. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, there's so many nuances in relationships. There's so many nuances to ourselves as people, and then we bring all sorts of things to a relationship, both light and shadow, and then our partner brings all kinds of light and shadow. And the healing process when those light and shadow pieces meet it really intrigues me.
Mm-hmm. So, in your opinion, in your own journey, how is it that we got so disconnected?
Some of it, I think, is because we don't have a cultural context for gender, for relationships. Some of it is that feminism, which is fantastic, but feminism only brings us so far in our gender relationships, and we need to take the next step. So I feel that what I see myself and everybody else trying to create are tribal type structures, which I think are incredibly nourishing for us as people, with a tribal understanding of how genders are different, and then feminist thought, of feminist theory that allows for a complete and full empowerment of the feminine in our lives and in ourselves as men, but particularly in our partners, in our female partners.
And I look forward in our workshops that we are rolling out here pretty soon to really work on the specifics of understanding some of the history, some of the background, where that brings us today, and then how to bridge those gaps and communicate better and differently and more clearly and set more specific boundaries and be able to speak our needs and requests and the way we can very lovingly and caringly support each other.
Yeah, it's interesting because we each of us, men and women, have masculine and feminine within us. And women will often show up with more feminine shadow and men often with more masculine shadow, although either gender can embody either masculine or feminine. So the pieces to that I think are really, really powerful is when we acknowledge those shadows, when we acknowledge our masculine and feminine shadow, and then we engage them using archetypes.
So for those that are not familiar with the terminology shadow and archetype, could you explain them separately, please? So when
Sure.
you refer to shadow and then archetypes.
Yeah. Shadow is the parts of ourselves that we deny, avoid, and repress. Those are the pieces of ourselves that we don't want to look at. Those pieces may include things that brought up from childhood, may include issues like money or sexuality or whatever those pieces are. And our shadow is where our healing lies. And archetypes are primordial, sort of mythological energies in our psyches, in our minds. So in the men that I work with, we have an archetype of the warrior, the king, the lover, and the magician. Those are sort of embodiments of the places that our psyche may go in different situations.
There was one piece that we spoke of recently where you said, and I resonate with this, I think many women will, because I work primarily with women, is you mentioned that women tend to be shut down energetically or have that part of themselves less available, that they tend to be they tend to be more shut down from the waist down, and men tend to be more shut down from the waist up. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, the Taoists believe that women tend to shut down from the knees to the navel. So when women shut down, they shut down in their pelvis. That is their vulnerable place, is their reproductive organs, their yoni, the area where they are where they're most vulnerable. And in Taoist thought, that is more about power and safety and security, whereas men will tend to shut down from the neck to the navel, our chest. So for men, we're more vulnerable in this area where we might display emotion inappropriately, or where we may be afraid to share our feelings. So when working with women, oftentimes the work is involved in the pelvis, around the shadow pieces or the hidden pieces of fear of loss, or fear of loss of security, or fear of loss of power. Whereas men, the shadow pieces are more around loss of esteem, or feeling powerless, or being seen as powerless by the world.
And so the work that you do, how do you see this makes available the access to those shut down areas, whether you're a man or a woman?
Do you remember the movie Annie Hall, the Woody Allen movie?
Vaguely.
There's a scene in the movie where Woody Allen is talking to, I think it's Diane Keaton, and they're having this conversation, they're arguing, and he would say something and then there's a subtitle, and then she would say something and then there's a subtitle, and the subtitles were what they were really saying. So when I work with couples, what I do is I try and get each partner to see what's being said underneath.
What they're
really saying, what's the subtitle. And oftentimes what they're really saying is a result of that shadow piece, of their archetype, either their feminine or their masculine shadow, where as a woman your subtitle in something you say to me might be, I'm afraid you're going to leave me. You might be yelling at me or whatever, and you might say, but underneath what you're saying is, I'm afraid you're going to leave me. As a man, I might be saying something nasty to my partner, or not quite nice, and my subtitle might be, I'm not good enough. So if we can see each other's subtitles, we can navigate that without escalating the conflict or confrontation.
So the communication piece, I think, is really so deeply valuable, and part of what I look forward to in working together as a female and as a male, to be able to help facilitate that for
and
both.
It's amazing too.
Both,
yeah, for both gender. It's amazing when you see people get it, like, because we're not fluent in gender. We're not fluent. I'm not, most men are not fluent in the language of the feminine, and most women are not fluent in the language of the masculine. Once we understand the language of our partner in the opposite gender, it becomes so much easier to navigate, because we can see the subtitles as they're flying by.
And that's one of the things that I love about your book, is not only does it help men understand better where they're getting stuck and what their apprehensions are in order to try to bridge that gap and reach their women more deeply, more fully. It's also very valuable for women to know what it is they are looking to find out and understand more about men.
Yeah, once women understand men, it's a whole new ballgame. Since for the last 30 or 40 years, men have been trying to understand women, or last 20 or 30,000 years. But in the, especially since feminism, there's been a lot of social pressure for men to understand women, which is really important. I think now it's time for men to start revealing who they are, and allowing women to see that men are not put together quite the same way, and we have to be perceived as we are, not as cliches or television sitcoms, but as full human beings with strengths and weaknesses, but also a certain kind of internal wiring that comes with the package.
So some of it is just really learning, studying, understanding, practicing new ways of thinking and being with each other, communicating better in ways that are going to work where we've got really stuck in the past. And so there's the communication piece that I'm excited to explore and work with individuals and couples, and also the energetic work that can be very much a part of or learned separately, but very complementary. What would you like to say about the energetic work that would be sort of an entry level?
Well, when I first wrote How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls, I started writing about sacred sexuality. And I realized I could not write about sacred sexuality without talking about the male psyche, male psychology. So the foundation piece, the entryway into sacred sexuality and deeper relationships, is absolutely the head and the heart. So that's where we start. We start with the head and the heart, and we start with, and the Taoists understood these things very, very well, the differences between men and women. So when we enter into that, we enter into things like the nuances of the subtitles, the energetics. Energetics are what are going on in our bodies as we're speaking, as we're communicating. Mm-hmm. Those are energetics. Right. So when we can track our energetics, not in our head so much, when we can track what's going on in our body, when we're both in bliss and in joy and in conflict, we can understand each other much better. Mm-hmm. This is a body knowing. This is somatic work.
And the whole concept of sacred sexuality is actually quite foreign to a large percentage of our population.
Unfortunately.
How would you describe sacred sexuality as opposed to common everyday understanding, current day popular understanding in our culture, in our Western culture, in our Hawaiian culture?
Many traditional cultures include sexuality as part of their spirituality. So this may be new for us as a society, but it's not new in human history. There were many, many societies that included sexuality because they had a deep and intuitive knowing that how couples engage in the bedroom affects the whole of their lives. And so when we use our love life in a way that deepens our connection to our partner, that will affect not only our relationship in the bedroom, but also the way we raise children, the way we relate to money, the way we relate to God and the earth itself. So when we take these practices into the bedroom and we deepen our love life with our partner, we deepen our whole life. Mm-hmm. I also have a personal belief that when we deepen our love life with our partner, we deepen our connection to the earth. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we really need now at this point in history, where we're doing so much damage to our planet, that this enhancing of our eroticism and this reconnecting of our bodies to each other and to the earth is extremely powerful and makes a huge difference in our quality of life.
And with my own research, there was a huge chunk of human existence where spirituality and sexuality and sensuality were one and the same. There wasn't the distinctions that there are today.
Didn't you see that when you're with your clients? Yeah. That's been my experience too. When women, not just women, when men and women, when people, when we re-somatize our body, we reawaken our body, and we learn how to connect to our partner in all kinds of different ways. Most of us have one channel for our lovemaking, but what if we had 30 or 50 channels for our lovemaking? And what if we had 30 or 50 different channels to communicate with each other and to talk to people? That's powerful. Mm-hmm. And our sacred sexual connection with our partner is one place to start that can be really useful and very powerful.
And it can be learned.
Yeah.
That's what's really exciting. It's not like we have to pretend that we know.
And as men, we think we need to be experts right off, so we can't accept feedback, we can't listen, but the men that I know that are doing their work, are facing their shadow, and are just admitting, we don't know. I don't know. I want to learn. Teach me.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge, because once we take that step and we allow our shadow to come up and realize we have nothing to be ashamed of, that the parts of ourselves we don't like are okay. I mean, we may need to work with them, but they're okay. When we do that as men, lives will change. It becomes very powerful.
And if we related to each other in these ways and had access to this energy and embraced it, what a better world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do it, brother.
Let's do it.